And we're live. I don't know what that means other than people will slowly come in. Welcome. Today's date. What is today? The 24th, Wednesday, 24th of November, the day before Thanksgiving. Nothing is more exciting than that. I think a lot of people are like getting off of work or already done with work. And if you are joining the chat, Dio Maven, good to see you. If you are joining the chat, tell me where you're from. I always like hearing that. And then also, if you have any questions, throw them in. Ooh, we're going to go light up. Let's do that. Light up the background. If you guys have a request for a color, let me know. Some of the colors don't look as good as others. But we'll give it a second, let some people come in. But let me know where are you joining me from, and then any questions you might have. Trying to think of a good topic. I did an interview today for a future event, and we talked about empathy, and it was a good conversation because as men, we often empathy is not our best or top trait, and that's what happens sometimes is that, the things that we aren't best at is sometimes things that we need to practice. So Dio, desire to be a dad. What advice do you have for me? It's a burning desire. Well, I think you need to find someone. If you do have somebody, then that's great. But, you want to take into consideration the person that you're with and how they will be as a mother. Su Nombre from Temecula. Right on. You're not that far. Let's see. Damien of the Damned from Illinois. I'm curious if advice is universal for any fatherly figures or just biological. No, I think it's for fatherly figures for sure. I mean, there are many different situations in which you are not a biological father, but you absolutely are a father figure. And I think the advice still applies. I think it's wonderful if you're a father figure and that you're stepping into that role. If there's specific questions, let me know. I'm happy to, lend. But yeah, I think my advice is more general. A lot of the advice, it's funny, things that work really well with kids often work with other adults. And so sometimes it's just more than just fatherly advice. Sometimes it's human advice. It's, learning how to be empathetic isn't just beneficial to your partner and your kids. It's beneficial at work. It's beneficial to your friends. And so I think a lot of the advice that I give or that I've experienced and I'm trying to, help teach is things that just make your life more rich and better. And I think it affects everybody around you. So yeah, if you're a fatherly figure, that's awesome. If you're joining us here, let me know where you're from, where you're joining me from, and any questions you have. Mark, good to see you. 2-week-old baby boy sleeps all day and is fussy and awake at night. How do we swap that? Well, there are, I'm not a sleep expert, but there are some techniques, where you can keep the baby awake a little bit. We used to have a little onesie for my son that said, party in my crib, 2 a.m., be there, or something like that. Because my son had done that too. I think part of it sometimes is the feedings of, when a child or baby is like really full, sometimes then that goes into the sleep mode. I would ask the pediatrician too, because you might alter the feeding schedule. That can, change things. It might be like keeping them up a little bit longer, for like an extended period and then transitioning. So it'd probably be best to talk with a pediatrician and just make sure that that's okay as far as like leaving the food, leaving food longer or in between, and Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know if I have a perfect answer for that. Um, the nerd boy. I recently got my girlfriend pregnant and we were both 15. So what should I do? Watch my video on teen pregnancy. That's probably the best advice that I can give because every scenario is different. I think it's probably the most important thing is having a support network around you. It's parents and grandparents and friends, and if you are deciding to keep the child, then that's going to be an important thing. But I'd say watch that video. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer. But you've got to step up and handle it. Damien had asked, I am indeed a fatherly figure to a pair of fraternal twins. I recently came across an issue where my partner's family is against me being called daddy, and I'm not sure how to proceed about it. So, well, I would have your partner talk to her family. I'm assuming, if it's a her. I mean, I don't want to assume, but if it's your partner's family, they should be talking to the family. You can't really step over and find out what the problem is. And you're saying, well, if he's not the father, then what's the case? And then what do they have against that? If you're stepping in and becoming a fatherly figure, or what? It's like what they call you. You kind of have to step back a little bit. It's not really about what they call you. It's about what your relationship is. But I understand that can be, maybe you can come up with another term. People have called it papa, people call it dad, or you can combine two words like dad and something else of like dad Damien, or I mean you could come up with something that's maybe a little different that the family wouldn't object to and that you feel good about. And there's, even if the family could be wrong, you're in a situation in which you want the family to be peaceful and you want the support. You don't have to try so amazingly hard, but I would try and just compromise and say, okay, well then what would you be cool with? And if they're only cool with them calling you by your first name, maybe after a certain point you can, they might say, well, hey, if you're there for 5 years, then you can be called dad. I don't know. There's something else. I don't want to say this, but there's probably something else going on and a reason why they don't feel that way. So you have to get to the bottom of that. Todd, hi, I'm from Atlanta. I'm a father of a 9-month-old daughter. Recently, her mother and I separated, and this co-parenting thing is stressful. Any advice? Yes. I mean, my advice would be well, first, empathy it is stressful. Parenting by itself is stressful, let alone doing, co-parenting. My advice is get along with the mother as best you can. If you have to fake it, you've got to swallow your pride, your ego, everything. You want to be a part of that daughter's life. And so you have to have a good relationship with the mother. I don't know if you do or not, you can say, but that's a really important thing. And it's simply for the sake of your daughter. The best thing you can do is have that good relationship, even if you have to pretend for a while, even if there's some things there's a reason why you're not together anymore. For the sake of your daughter, you put on an act, and because that's sometimes the gatekeeper and the access and everything else. And you want to have a great relationship with your daughter. And oftentimes the best way to do that is to have a civil and respectful relationship with the mother. Sometimes that's impossible, but do your best. Dan, just started co-parenting and I want to teach my daughter to share. What are some techniques that'll help her learn to share? When they're really young, they don't want to share. They don't really understand the concept. Part of it is just showing them over and over and over again. It's you having something and then sharing it with your daughter. It's just it's it's repetition. It's showing them over and over. I don't know that they're off the top of my head if there's any specific advice for other than showing them. That's kind of um, the best way I can think of. Um, so I was talking about T.A. Davis. Hey, good to see you. Roz, good to see you. Thank you, everyone joining in here. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. I was talking before I got to some of the questions. I was talking about empathy and how I was doing an interview and how important empathy is. And actually, this can apply to those of you who are in a co-parenting situation. As much as you may not agree with your partner or the mother of your child, you may not like what they do. You may not just have different styles, different thoughts, whatever. Being empathetic is one of the most powerful things you can do. And it doesn't mean that you agree with with what they're doing or how they do it. So what that means is look at the situation from your co-parent's perspective. The mother of the child, is faced with this situation. Maybe her family is a certain way, her financial circumstances. Even if she's making choices, that's something, she's making certain choices that you don't agree with. All of that still lends itself to being empathetic to her situation. It doesn't mean, like I said, it doesn't mean you agree with it. It doesn't mean you're validating it or that you're approving of it. It just means that you understand where she's coming from. And that can go a really long way. It's something that, I just don't think we learn enough, especially as men. It's just not something, women are often more empathetic. They can kind of put themselves in the other person's shoes. They have a little bit more, feelings towards people and such. And we often don't do that. So those co-parenting situations aren't easy, but that's what I would suggest. Dan, good to see you. We have a 2-month-old. Any tips to get him to sleep through the night? Yeah. So I did a video on getting a baby to sleep. There are some good sleep programs, and there's a bunch of different techniques on how to do it. I can tell you what we did. Other different things work for different people. One of the first things is routine. Always have a routine. So that means you pick a time, very specific. Also pick a time that's earlier than you think. Our children went to bed around 6:30, 7 o'clock when they were born. For a while, and we had that routine. It's bath time, pajamas, story, brush teeth. It's the same routine over and over and over again. Same bath, same stories sometimes because they like the same story. And it's time to go to sleep. And then the other thing was, if your baby tolerates it, like I said, this worked for our child, not necessarily for everybody else. Was a big feeding at night. That's how our child went to sleep. Now, me personally, you think about it as an adult, you get really full and you want to go to sleep. So I can see how that, that can happen. And, but for children, you just got to find out what those things are. And sometimes it's just them knowing that they can put themselves back to sleep and knowing, that the person is not necessarily coming in right then, that it's nighttime and they're supposed to sleep. So, when they're little, it's so tough because there's so many different philosophies and such with that. But I think the routine is really important. That helped with us. And then make them go to bed earlier than you think. Let's see. Mike, good to see you. My wife and I just came home from the hospital a few hours ago. It's such an exciting time. Introduction between big brother and little brother was beautiful. That's awesome. That's so cool. 9 Deuce. What grade should a kid have a cell phone, in my opinion? Never. So my son was in 8th grade. We waited as long as we could. And also it was a limited phone. It depends on the situation. Kids survived prior without it. I'm not a big fan. There's a phone to communicate, but definitely limit that phone. No social media, very limited on what it can do. Basically the phone for us was just to get in contact when he needed to be picked up or was at a friend's house and wanted to make sure things are okay, whatever. It's not a replacement for the computer and social media and everything else and videos and all that. Now that he's older and more mature, it's a little different. So Dan, glad that worked out. Josh watching from New Zealand, have a 6-week-old baby, and I look after him full time. How much tummy time is enough each day? He hates tummy time and screams a ton. Continue. I'm not sure if he hates it, why you would continue doing it. I would call or talk maybe with a pediatrician. There could be a reason why, if it's being done after he's fed, it could make him really uncomfortable. If he's screaming and not enjoying it, maybe try to find something else to do. I mean, tummy time is just to get the child used to crawling and such. But if somebody hates it, I don't know that I would endorse it. Forcing the child to do something that, I maybe need to see the literature and see the documentation of why it's so important other than, getting them comfortable in different aspects of their self-awareness. But you might try doing it at a different time, maybe before he eats or, different time in the day and kind of look and kind of just monitor what's going on. That's what I would. Mike. So Mike used the introduction tip of the gift from the little brother. That's cool. I'm glad that worked out. Zed, anything other than breastfeeding that can soothe a newborn? Me and my wife had our son on Sunday. We didn't use a pacifier. A lot of people do use pacifiers. Our babies didn't take to them. That's kind of soothing, holding them. But if breastfeeding in the short term, you know what? That's a good way of doing it. It can also mean they're safe. They feel safe. They could be hungry. Other than soothing sometimes maybe in swaddling, holding them. There's not a lot when they're a couple days old. I don't think you can spoil the child that early. Baby's just brand new into the world. Like whatever you got to do, you do. And you slowly, over weeks can kind of reassess as things are going. But when the baby's brand new, there's no harm to me of the baby being there. It might be tiring for your wife. But yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to see everything here. If I missed anything. So if you guys, let me know where you're joining me from. Looks like some people from all over the world, which is awesome. I don't know the timing. You're coming in the middle of the night. And then also any questions you have. I had mentioned before, I'm looking at possibly doing a regular live to do questions and answers. Johnny, hello, how are you? Potty training tips. My wife handled that. Full disclosure. I do not have potty training tips, even though like I said, it's funny. A lot of these questions are baby expert questions. And a lot of what I do is from the dad side. So it's improving ourselves, it's understanding how to, but it's funny because so many of these questions are like, how do I do this with the baby? And how do I do that with the baby? And there's a lot of different techniques. A lot of times I say, talk with your pediatrician. A doctor knows your situation better. You could have a unique situation, and I don't want to give advice on something that I'm not as familiar with. Let's see. Ill Will, good to see you. Glad you're joining us. Russell, good to see you. Russell, glad you've been enjoying those. That's awesome. So Todd, what age would you say a child can become spoiled? That can happen in any aspects of the child then wanting the attention. And so it's very hard to say. I think during that first 6 months or so, I just don't know that you can screw anything up because almost everything can be corrected and reversed. You really just want that baby thriving, eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom. It's really just survival mode. There's not giving the child too much attention or that I just don't believe in that. That's me personally. Series of a Forex trader. What a name. Out here in South Africa, just woke up now. It's 2 a.m. because the little one is up for some milk, of course. Kyle, hey, how's it going? Johnny, you're welcome. Dreamwork asks, any creative father-son activities? Dreamwork, how old is the child? You'll have to tell me because that will determine creative activities for a father and son. But what I will say is, there's this amazing thing, Google, that has a lot of activities that you can look. Children, especially when they're really young, a lot of it is just interacting with you. We used to play, whether it's hide and seek, whether it is, I Spy, where you point out things. It's, you can count. It really depends on the age of the child. Kyle says 8-year-old is the new terrible twos. Your opinion on that? I think it will depend on how much and what you did as a parent in prior years. It's different for different people. The 2 to 5 was really rough in our house, but after that, it wasn't. 8 was not that difficult. There's some difficult elements of it, and children start kind of pushing back on authority. They start trying to find themselves. There's all kinds of things that can, the friend influence can start to creep in. So yeah, I don't know. It wasn't too bad. Ben from SoCal, going to be a new dad, wife 17 weeks pregnant. Any words of advice? Yeah, look, I'd say go watch all the videos. There's nothing specific other than just hang in there. I've got, I just released yesterday or 2 days ago, the, 5 pieces of advice for expectant fathers. So that's probably the best way to do it is watch that video. Soapy Fish, going to be a dad at 17, trying to figure out any advice. Yeah, watch my teen dad video. I had mentioned that in a previous one. I have an advice for teens, and it's kind of from the perspective that if my son had that situation, here's how I would handle it. So that's probably the best way to start. When you are young, and I mentioned this earlier in this stream, there's all these different balances. You're trying to balance the fact that you could be trying to finish school or get, have B-school, you don't have necessarily the money and the support, financial support. So you have to rely on the things around you and the support network around you. If you don't have that, then it is really tough. Then you have to go to, look at nonprofit organizations or religious organizations for some support. But having a network of support around you, it's really important. It's important when you're older and you have the financial means. But when you are younger, you have to balance some of those things where, the financial aspects can be tough, and it's the reality of where you're at. So, can't say could have done this, should have done this, would have done this. It's, how do you move this forward? And, you move yourself forward. You do what you can to provide for the child and allow them to thrive and provide a safe environment for them. But you're going to need that support network around you for sure. So ill will, I work third shift. How do I balance that with home life? You do your best and you don't beat yourself up about it. That's the best probably piece of advice I could give, short of changing your shift, if that's even an option. You try to schedule things so that you can be present and so that you can, be there. In the end, nobody on their deathbed is going to say, I should have spent more time at the office. They're going to say, I should have spent more time with the people I love and doing that. So there's a couple of thoughts here, and I don't know your specific situation, but I'm just talking out of the blue. You can look at, if it really bothers you, that situation, then you look at changing the situation. If it doesn't bother you and you're just trying to figure out how to work around it, that's different. But you are in control of your situation. And anyone who thinks that they're not, I think just doesn't have the confidence that they need. So, you could look for a different job. If you really like that job and you really enjoy working third shift, then you got to do that and you balance it. And how do you balance it? By you just trying to be the best, dad you can be one day. And then maybe another day, you're not going to be the best dad. You're going to be a great worker, and you kind of calibrate that. And it's not work-life balance. I really like the word work-life harmony. It's kind of everything working together. And, if you have a partner, then you know that your partner needs the attention and that your child needs the attention and you need your own attention. And then, your work does too. And it's a hard balance, but you just got to be aware and see, who needs what and when, by also taking care of yourself. And if that means that you might have to get a different job at different hours or get more pay so that you can take more time off, or, all of those are possibilities, and never think that you can't do it. You can. You just have to believe that you can and take the time to do it. Let's see. Wow. A lot came in after I was going on my rant. Celestino asks, you had conception November 2nd, goes to the doctor on the 24th. The result is 4 weeks pregnant. Is it possible? I don't know. Could she have been with somebody else? I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know if that's possible, actually. I'm sorry. Todd had asked, sometimes my mannerisms and tones make her break out into tears. Any advice for softening up? Soften up. Learn more effective ways of communicating. So study communication. Actually, my parenting course would probably be really helpful. You need to be empathetic. You need to look at the situation from your daughter's perspective, and that will change. Imagine a big, scary man yelling or talking over her because you're trying to assert control. That's not the way that, you get your child to listen. And well, you might get them to listen in the short term, but you're going to break, you don't want to break their spirit. You want to do it in a way. And so communicating and being empathetic is going to be the way to do that. And so, yeah, I mean, soften up, it sounds like, it. You just have to catch yourself, and it takes practice, learn patience, learn that what the child is doing is probably normal. And if something is annoying you, it's your problem, not the child's. You're the one who's getting annoyed and handling it in a non-optimized way. And so that's sometimes it's hard to accept. The fact is, like, when the children feel like they're annoying you, it's your fault. You're the one getting annoyed. It's not the child's fault, because another person might be in that situation and they're not annoyed at all by that same kind of behavior or manners or whatever. So it's really about you and learning how to manage your emotions and manage your communication and such. And that's what I teach in my parenting program. I mean, that, if that's something of interest to anybody, it's an in-depth parenting program that we take you through, and that's what it's about. It is about communicating more effectively, and having a style of parenting that is effective. And so that, you don't have to rule by fear. I don't want my kids to fear me. I want my kids to respect me and want to, and love me. I don't want them to fear me. And so, fear is not a great long-term solution. It works in the short term when you yell at your child and they'll do exactly what you tell them to do. In our generation, previous generation, a lot of people ruled by fear. I personally don't agree with that. So, they'll just intrinsically fear you because you're bigger and louder. Let's see. So Isaac, you're asking some questions about the program. You can go onto the website, go onto daduniversity.com, and you can click on program and fill out the form, because there's actually some information that we need to evaluate and stuff, because not everybody is a great fit for it. And then what we'll do is we'll set up a phone call or a Zoom call with you and me, and we'll go over it and talk about, if it's a good fit or not. So if you do have interest in that, go to the website, click on program, fill out the application, and then we'll get back to you on that. That's the best way to do it. And we can talk about all the details and everything. So Kyle, sorry, you just asked kind of the same thing. Yeah, I would suggest go to the website, daduniversity.com, and that'll be the way to do it. Yeah, there's never a dull moment when you are parenting. With all of this, here's what I'll say to everybody. You're allowed to make mistakes. And as parents, we are so hard on ourselves sometimes, especially, here's the thing. You're here in a chat or watching the video on replay, whatever, because you care about being a father. You care about it. It's something that's important to you. You want to improve yourself. That alone separates you into a great, being a great father. Now, on a daily basis, we're very hard on ourselves sometimes. We have guilt, and you have to give yourself a little bit of grace and just be, understand that we are not perfect. Nobody is. We all make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes and even acknowledge the mistakes. I was just talking about this on an interview that I had, that somebody had interviewed me and talking about, I recently, slammed a door and yelled or something. And, right after I realized, I said, okay, well, that wasn't a great example, that my son was sitting right there and saw all that. So and part of it was my argument with him. And so I just came back and apologized. And I just said, listen, I'm really sorry. I didn't handle that very well. And I was already upset at some other things that had happened during the day. And so, of course, I come home, and it happens. And instead of me making an excuse or not saying anything or just thinking that he should have to deal with that, it's like he didn't deserve me talking to him like that at all. He didn't do anything. It was just me having a bad day and taking it out on him because he happened to be there. So me apologizing, it's not only for myself and recognizing that, but it's also for him and modeling it for him. And so a lot of times I don't think as parents, we do this enough where we actually recognize our mistake and then apologize for it or acknowledge it that, hey, you know what? I could have probably done this better in a different way. And showing and telling our children that. And so you better believe that my son and daughter, whatever, like they'll slam a door. It's going to happen and they'll yell. But almost all the time, it takes them a little, bit of time and they'll come back and say, you know what? I'm really sorry. I was upset at this, or I could have handled this better. And where they saw that was from me and my wife and the way that we handle those things. So it's modeling the behavior and understanding it often that how you act and how you handle things is how your children are going to handle things. And if you want them to handle things in a mature or civil or calm way, however you want to explain it, you have to do the same. And sometimes that's really hard, especially when you've got emotion involved and you're upset. And it's like the last thing you want to do sometimes is apologize. I know that that's happened with my wife and I. It's like, no, I'm not wrong. Now, what I think, I might stick with my belief of what I was arguing for, but there is no question that I could have handled it differently, that I didn't have to come at the person that way, or I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to slam a door or whatever. And part of that is just our own personal growth and learning. So I think if you can take something from this, that's something to take, is that, all of these situations happen, we just, our emotions and especially with our children, it happens a lot. And, being a father is not easy. Being a good father is even more difficult. And it takes patience, it takes effort, it takes thought. You got to be mindful of how you act. And so I think it's just, it's something that we all just need to be mindful of, is that, we're not perfect. And, we all make mistakes. Our children are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. That's okay. So Legacy has asked, do you have a book list you recommend, or what you have in your personal collection behind you? Well, you know what? Let's see. So give you a couple books. This is Positive Discipline for Teenagers, Jane Nelson. She's awesome. I did an interview with her. There's a couple books. Some of these were gifts to me. Positive Discipline is awesome. Jane Nelson and Positive Discipline, great. A lot of the stuff that I have is based on the same teachings of Dreikers and the psychologist and behind that. This is a book by my mother. It's called Light Her Fire. That's a good one. She was a relationship author and seminar speaker. Great. And so some of the relationship stuff that I incorporate is her books. What do we have over here? There's another Positive Discipline one. There's Effective Parenting. A lot of these are kind of old school books that were hand-me-downs from my parents to me. But there's another one, Armin Brott. He is the new father. He's also like what to expect when you're expecting. I think he did something. I think he's known as Mr. Dad. He's got tons of books that a lot of people really enjoy. I haven't read that one yet. I probably should after 11 years. But the others I have. And but he's a prolific author, has a lot of books. For me, I'll be candid, I don't enjoy reading anymore. The fact that we have videos, I've realized that I've learned through hearing pretty much. I'm much more auditory. And so, people are auditory. Some people learn kinetically by doing. I learn by listening. And so for me, I watch YouTube videos, I learn that way. That happens to be my preference. That's kind of why I started doing more of my videos rather than like written word and blogging and that kind of stuff. It's just I really enjoy learning that way. And so as a result, I'm teaching that way. So Isaac had said, never had a biological father in my life, let alone any father that had been in my life that I care about. Fatherhood to the first boy, especially any tips on a background like that, raising a son. Well, I think you have a clean slate, which is okay. That, you don't have any expectations. I do think a program like mine or, in researching and watching videos and learning about fatherhood is important. And it is hard when you don't. I do have to recognize that it is difficult. And so you're kind of forced to learn new things, good or bad. People who had a father either saw things that they don't want to repeat, or they now have, they see things and how their father was, and that's how they want to be. I was very fortunate. I had a loving father, both parents, and my father was there all the time. I mean, he was always participating in our events, being at games and just always watching and being there and rooting us on, and it was a very loving father. So it's hard for me to then put myself in that spot of never having that. What I can tell you is, the things that my father did, the things that I'm trying to do, and that hopefully you can learn from those, to be a good father. And so I don't, you're definitely starting with a clean slate, which can be good because some people just go into patterns based on the fact that their father did something, and so they do it as well. So I think you can kind of look at it in a positive way if you can. So Marcel had said, my 3-year-old son is very shy and skittish. I wonder if I'm possibly being overbearing, which is causing him to cry a lot or be needy. Yeah, probably. I mean, you probably hit it on the head. It's hard to say. I mean, there's different personality types for children. What I would say, in fact, I was looking at doing this as a video, is allowing your child to do more, giving them responsibilities, even at a very young age, having them clean up, having them carry their own, like, here's an example. This drives me nuts is when I see kids in preschool, kindergarten. If the child is old enough to have a backpack, the child should carry their own backpack. It's like with luggage, it's like with anything, having the child participate and do their own things is very important to build their confidence. Certainly some kids are just more shy than others, and, the personalities are different, but there is something to, giving a child self-confidence. I have an older video about that. I'm trying to remember the name on it. But it talks about confidence and, the self-esteem and self-acceptance for a child. But a lot of times the way to do that is by allowing them to do things for themselves. Let them get dressed by themselves, even if they're struggling a little bit, maybe you just hold a little bit of the arm or something, but like, let them, teach them to tie their shoes, let them help bring, a plate over to the table, and like, get them involved in things. And so that you're not doing everything for them. And that actually builds their confidence. It's funny, as a parent, we do so much for our children, and fathers do this. Mothers are probably a little bit more notorious for doing this. It's a way that we show a lot of times we show our love by doing things for our children. And while that's great, it's not helping them. It's not helping them develop. It's not resilience. That was the word I was looking for. It's not helping them build resilience and confidence. So the way that we can do that is by allowing them to do things for themselves. Hope that helps. Kyle, what is your program exactly? Well, that is a great question. So it's funny. I advertise it on all of my videos, and that is a very good indication that I'm not doing a good enough job explaining what my program is. So I have it's designed as 8 weeks, and it's a online course for dads. It's really designed if your child is like 2 and up, 2 to 3 maybe and up. Plenty of dads with younger kids will take it. But for some of the homework assignments and things, you won't, you might not be able to do it if your child doesn't talk or such. But here's the thing, it's lifetime access. So, if you take it when your child is a year old, you can always take it again when your child is 4. And different things will be you'll think about different things. But the program is basically all things about fatherhood and everything that I wish I had prior to my kids being 3 and 4 years old. And so it talks about our own mindset and how much all of the things that we do, from work-life balance to our gratitude to empathy, it goes into our relationship with our partner. And whether you are in a marriage, co-parenting, it still talks about how you deal with your partner. We go into discipline, the different types of discipline, creating boundaries, but being still loving and assertive. So it's really a very in-depth online course. You can go at your own pace. And then the people who are in that online course also have access to my office hours. So you have the ability once a week for an hour. I have an office hours, and you can come in privately, ask questions, well, private to the group and those people involved, and ask those questions so you can get your questions answered. So if that is of interest, that's where I said you can go to the website, fill out the program, and do that. That is something that men have been going through. Very, very helpful. You can go at your own pace. Like I said, it's a combination of there's presentation, video, homework, exercises, things. And the whole idea is to help you go, which I say is kind of from chaos and confusion to calm and confident as a father. And it literally is my journey. It's the journey that I took, learning patience, learning the different aspects of discipline, how to communicate with my kids. And it's just all of these things wrapped up into one comprehensive course. And so that's the program, as it's called, the parenting program. And that's what I teach. So if you have an interest in that, please, feel free to go to the website and do that. Wow. Thank you guys. Just let me make sure that I covered everybody's here. There's still some, Cam Poo Poo, you're welcome. Kyle, 12, 8, 6, 5, 2, and 6 months. That's busy. You are busy. Jeremy, you are welcome. Jeremy is just mentioning that, there's not a lot that exists out here for dads. Yeah, it's what I wish I had when I was going through that, as I am still, I said my kids are 11 and 13. And so now I'm learning all about the parenting year or the teenage years, and, really studying and understanding that as well. And, so that my kids can thrive, and, and that I can too. I mean, this is about our children, but it also really, Dad University, it really is about you. And, when you are whole, and what I mean by whole is you understand how to communicate. You are, your self-acceptance is good. You're feeling good about who you are, what you are, your presence. You feel confident in your abilities to handle situations. And even if you don't know the answer, you're still confident and okay with not knowing the answer. I've gotten to that point where I'm totally okay with not knowing what to do. As some people have asked questions and I don't have the answer, I'm okay in admitting that. And that came from practice. At first, I always thought that I had to have an answer to everything as a just as a man, I had to have the answers to everything. And that's not true. It's not true at all. And so I just wanted to say, when you can do these things for yourself and become a better father, a better husband, a better man, that's going to greatly affect your children, and your children will appreciate it. And everyone's better off. Disco Vandal, is it possible for your girlfriend to be pregnant? No. In the situation that you're asking, if you grinded without clothes, no. In order to be pregnant, the sperm that you release has to go inside of her. If that didn't happen, there's no chance of pregnancy. Even when that happens, there's sometimes a chance that that's not going to happen, as the sperm has to go deep inside. But you should be okay. So yeah, don't stress about it. So Franco, do you recommend or have white noise machines or a baby cam, just like a Google Nest or something? That this is greetings from Barcelona. No, I don't, because we didn't use it and I don't like them. I'm taking the opposite approach of many men. Personally, I didn't want to watch my child 24/7. Not to say it just becomes a little too obsessive. And then here's the other thing with white noise. I understand that can be beneficial. The problem with this is my opinion, is that then when you go somewhere and you don't have the white noise, you're screwed. So my recommendation is teaching the child to sleep no matter what. We had a really large, loud garage, automatic garage because our child was on the second floor of our house, and on the first floor is the garage, and it was really loud. And in the beginning, I was always so worried that our child was going to get up from the garage opening. And so we wouldn't open the garage. We would have to move the cars. It was a pain. Finally, I just said, screw this. We're going to have to teach him to sleep through the loud noise. And guess what? He did. And so I stopped worrying about it. And so my concern with the noise machines and this is what happens if you don't have the machine? So I don't recommend anything specifically. I know a lot of people swear by it. That's great. It's just not my deal. So Mr. Mayhem, I'm terrified to have kids. My girlfriend of 6 years wants to start once I graduate college. She's already finished her master's. I have been binge watching on your channel. You're welcome thank you for the content. You're welcome. Here's my only advice, even though you're not asking it. If you are terrified, it's probably not perfect timing. I think everybody is scared at some, there are certainly men who just love it and can't wait, and it's a dream and they can't wait to have kids. But you do want to be, I won't say the word ready, because you're never perfectly ready, but you do want to have that desire to have the children. And don't necessarily be in a hurry either. I know for some women that's the case, and they want to have it sooner. That's fine. That's an individual decision. But yeah, there's a lot of decisions that go into play as far as, children are wonderful. You're not going to lose your life. And, a lot of people feel like their life is gone, their old life and their new life and such. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about the timing too much. Jackson, good to see you. How to set boundaries with family giving unsolicited advice. You don't. Well, you speak with her or you speak with your family. She speaks with her family. Don't cross family lines. The boundaries are set in some ways. I'll give you a wonderful line that was taught to me. Let's say mother-in-law comes over and is like, "Oh, you shouldn't be holding the baby like that." Whatever, A wonderful line is, you know what? Maybe she gives advice and shows you how, and you say, you know what? Thank you. I will take that into consideration. That's it. That's all you say. You can set all the boundaries you want, Just because somebody gives advice doesn't mean you have to take it. But when you say a line like that and you say, hey, you know what? I'll take that into consideration. That doesn't mean you're going to do it. All you're doing is acknowledging the fact that you heard them. Hey, thank you for that advice. The reason often that we get upset at the advice that somebody else gives is because we are not confident, not all the time, but sometimes, is we're not totally confident that what we're doing is absolutely correct. We're questioning it. And so it hits a chord. And I remember that. It hits a chord. It's like, what? I'm not good enough? What? I'm not smart enough? I can't do this? And it's this self-doubt. The way to combat that is just acknowledge that you hear it and move on and say, you know what? Oh, thank you. Just completely act if you have to. Say, you know what? Thank you for that. Thank you for that insight. That doesn't mean you have to do it. Maybe, there's different ways of doing things. And if you know what, when your mother-in-law's around, she likes to swaddle the baby this way. Like, who cares? Like, the fact that she's helping, let her help. Sometimes it's just not worth it. Sometimes it's not worth the battle. Now, if it's something where it's a very strong belief that you have and the other person is really not handling it in a way that you just really strongly believe, then sometimes you may have to have that as a conversation. And you can say, hey, listen, I totally appreciate, what you said about this. What we've decided to do is this. And, I'd love for you to respect that. The hard part happens when you ask for something like, let's say your mother or mother-in-law, you ask them to watch your child, but you want them to watch it in the way that you want to watch the child. And so sometimes that can be a little difficult. Kiwi, Mad Dog, having issues with my toddler waking up every night looking for me. She won't settle unless I come into her room. I haven't slept in my own bed for a full night in about 4 weeks. I'm going to suggest watching Super Nanny. You can look online, watch Super Nanny. She deals with this all the time. And a lot of it is just bringing the toddler back into the room, saying, I'm sorry, you need to do that. Otherwise you are creating a trap. And why wouldn't the child, if you're going to go in and hang out with them every night? Of course, but you might have to do some baby steps, no pun intended, but where you snuggle for a while and then you go into the room, whatever. Super Nanny's great at that stuff. And then, hey, I'm only going to be able to take one more. I've got to go. So Declan, any tips for making a newborn baby want to be with his father more to take the pressure off my partner? The only real bonding moment I have felt is giving him his bottle. Yeah. As a newborn, I wouldn't expect that you're going to bond right away anyways. It takes time. She had the baby for 9 months in her stomach. If she's breastfeeding, it's even more, if she's the primary caregiver, she spends more time with the baby. It takes time. I would suggest you do diaper changes, you do baths, you do things and you spend the time, and eventually the child will do that. Here's what I'll say. In general, and let's say you do spend a lot of time, but the other person, doesn't matter male or female, the other person spends more time with the child. You are just by nature going to be kind of left out a little bit. So what the answer to that is that, you keep doing it and eventually then it can switch. Like oftentimes the mother is the favorite when they're a small baby. And then as the toddler starts doing more activities, they might like all of a sudden like the father more. I can give you a story real brief is my wife stayed home. She stayed home for a while, was just working a little bit part-time, but she was the one with our son all the time. And I came home, and this happened a couple of times, where my son, when he started to talk, he said, no daddy home. Meaning he didn't want me there because I took away his mom and his attention. Because when I got home, we would have dinner, we would do stuff. So he thought of me as like the enemy because I was taking away mom. So he didn't want me at all. So what would happen is that, we started by all three of us kind of hanging out together and then me doing things individually with him. And so eventually, I was coming home to running hugs. I mean, he would run home, or when I would come, he would run over to me, jump and, lug into my arms because he knew we were going to do something or, and he knew that I wasn't a threat. So it just takes time. It's something that you got to deal with. So, guys, Jeremy, this is a good one. So I'll answer this one. How do you politely tell your mom to watch your child like you do and not her way? So that's kind of what I had said before. It depends on your mom and her personality. You can have that conversation and say, hey, depending on your closeness to your mom, say, listen, mom, I'd love for you to respect how we are doing things. If she doesn't, you have a couple options. You could say, you know what? I'd still rather her be spending time with the child. Or if it's really serious, what you end up doing is kind of you don't want to threaten her, but it's like, we're less likely to spend our child's less likely to spend the time with you if you're not going to respect the way that we do it. Now, if your mother is watching your child, you got to be careful about how picky you are if someone's offering to do that. The only way to combat that is to not have your mom watch it and then go pay somebody to watch your child in the manner that you want to do. So sometimes you got to my phone is blowing up here. Sorry. Sometimes you want to, you want to do things a certain way, but you can't, especially when someone's offering that. So listen, I love everybody here. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. Oprah Sideman, let's see, you had a question about, it wasn't a question, but you just, how to deal with the sadness of a miscarriage in a relationship. There is a website, Miscarriages for Men. I'm not sure if it's miscarriageformen.com. Great resource, great guys, great guy running it. You could probably use that. I hope that helps. So everyone, Declan, Jeremy, Jackson, thank you everybody for being here. I will try to announce in advance when I'm going to do this again so that you guys have some time and notice. I just happen to pop on and love the fact that people are here to see it. So Brad, no, you're the man. Thank you. I really appreciate every one of you and supporting, subscribing, getting this word out that, it's okay to want to be a better dad. And just, grateful for every single one of you. So for those of you celebrating Thanksgiving, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. For those of you watching on a replay, thank you. And we will see you next time, as I always say in my other videos. So everyone have a great week and we'll talk with you soon.